So much has been made about Donald Trump's surge with black voters. What do you attribute this to besides your swag, obviously?
He's real.
Yeah.
He's a real guy. For 9 years, they've been going after him. They've done everything to him. They said he was a Ruski. They said he was a plant. They said he was a con artist. Now they said that he's indicted. Now they're saying he's a convict. And through it all, he doesn't speed up. He doesn't slow down. It's still MAGA all day long. Yep. It's still, I'm standing for the forgotten men and women. It's still all those other networks, not here, Jimmy. They're nothing but fake news. And what people have seen is that they mistreat him day in, day out. But he's still fighting for the American people. Black men look at that and they're like, man, if he can go through that, maybe he's saying the truth.
Yeah.
And then the last piece is when he was president, is how they say it, you know, over the bridge in Brooklyn. When he was president, my pockets were right.
That matters.
My money was together.
Former President Donald Trump went on Fox News Live to talk about the ABC rigged debate, and it looks like the news network may just lose its license because of this. Check this out.
Every single poll had us winning by a lot, despite the fact that it was an unfair debate, obviously, and it was a 3-on-1. And that's okay. I've had worse odds in my life. I've had it before, but never so obvious. A lot of people are very angry about it. You know, you have corrupt news organizations. You have a lot of bad people. It's amazing in that business. In your business.
Why didn't the moderators correct her?
Because they're dishonest, and because I think ABC took a big hit last night. I mean, to be honest, they're a news organization. They have to be licensed to do it. They ought to take away their license for the way they did that. Bloodbath was referring to the economy. Everybody loved the term because as soon as they heard the word, it's sort of a vicious word. But referring to the economy, they have created an economy. Bloodbath was the word that I used. And it was fine in that context. And they were trying to make it sound like there was a riot or something. The whole thing with abortion, what he said, I mean, it was incredible. I think he corrected me 6 times. And each time I was right. I believe each time I was right, didn't correct her at all. What I said was absolutely perfect. And ABC knew that. Everybody knew that, frankly. I think they lost a lot of credibility. But regardless, look, the polls are saying that I won that by 80-20, 90. We have one here, 92-7. And I sort of believe that's right. I thought, look, I've been told I'm a good debater. I think it was one of my better debates, maybe my best debate, I think. I don't know. Well, that's why I'm disappointed in this guy, Harold Ford. I don't know if he's still there, but I don't know what he was watching because he was just as dishonest as ABC, in my opinion.
In fact, guys, that ABC lopsided debate, I've heard a lot of people say that they just no longer support Kamala Harris. Instead, they're actually voting for Donald Trump. Media Buzz host Howard Kurtz called out the network bias and gave the ABC moderators a D grade. And that was being generous.
Howie, how do you grade ABC on this debate?
Sandra, ABC gets a D-, and that's being generous. In fact, the network's moderators were so blatantly biased against Donald Trump that it vindicated his pregame criticism of ABC as dishonest. Now, putting aside Kamala Harris's aggressive performance, moderators David Muir and Lindsey Davis asked much tougher questions of the former president, repeatedly followed up and corrected his responses on, as you said, 5 occasions. For the vice president, the figure was zilch. For example, while Harris was asked about abandoning her previous left-wing positions on fracking, she originally said she opposed, and abolishing private health insurance, she danced around those questions or said things that were untrue with no fact-checking at all by ABC. The same goes for the VP's out-of-context charge that Trump had warned of a bloodbath if he loses. Now, when Harris said things that were false, such as that Trump is actively pursuing the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, which he has repeatedly disavowed, there was no challenge by ABC.
Understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments.
Actually, Trump has been a leading advocate of IVF treatments, but the former president was constantly pressed on whether he rejects anything he did on January 6th or whether he wants Ukraine to win the war against Russia. When Trump said crime was rising, ABC's Muir said, President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. Now, There were times when fact-checking was appropriate, such as when Trump repeated a debunked claim that Haitian immigrants in Ohio were eating pets. But it was generally one-sided, so one-sided as to support Trump's complaint the debate was 3 against 1.
Now, honestly, guys, I just can't fathom right now the idea of Harris becoming president. If this debate were any indication, I mean, you just got to wonder what would happen if Vice President Kamala Harris gets another 4 years in the White House. Honestly, it just kind of makes me worried about the country, you know? Now, one thing that you heard Kurtz talking about Project 2025 and Kamala Harris basically lying that Donald Trump had something to do with it. Well, here's former director of Project 2025, Paul Dans, saying categorically that our former President Donald Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025.
You know, the breaking news is Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025. Sure, a lot of us have worked in the admin and came together, but this started long before he even announced for president.
Now, I'm telling you guys, though their party may think otherwise, the debate went awfully for the vice president. Just check out how independent voters, the people who Harris are trying to get on her side, actually sided with Donald Trump as he spoke during the debate.
She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day 1.
Well, guys, the great wealth transfer is in full effect. And, you know, whether it's Donald Trump that ends up winning the election or if it's Kamala Harris, oh, God, we're in a world of a pickle, as my grandfather would say. Our freedoms are being stolen, guys. Credit card companies are out to get us. And if you don't understand the game, well, you end up getting played by the game. Now, if you're anything like me, guys, you know, you were probably out of shape, maybe in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and just feeling like the system is just completely taking advantage of you. I remember for a long time, I could rarely ever get any time to spend with my wife. And it's kind of funny because where I used to work with a lot of married men. And a lot of those married men would always complain about their spouses as if they really just didn't even like their spouses, which is sounding like a pretty horrible situation. But that was the case for many of them. They didn't like who they were married to. But I was different. Anyway, through trial and error and through a lot of pain, I figured out how to gain freedom and also lose a lot of weight and actually get in shape. And guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, that was a game changer. To no longer be living paycheck to paycheck, figuring out how to get the credit cards to pay me, the power of a strong credit score. I pay thousands of dollars less per year for the same house as my neighbor just because my credit is better than his is. And this is not to brag. I mean, but this is the truth. The banks are literally taking advantage of the poor. It's like the people who can least afford it, they're charging the poor what is like unofficially called a poor tax or a tax on the poor. I mean, I'm now at a point where, you know, like, number one, I don't pay for credit cards. In fact, credit card companies pay me to use their cards. And I figured out how to build a lifestyle that is just ultimately very, very healthy. I lost a tremendous amount of weight and I put on a lot of muscle. But when I was struggling, I wish I knew people who knew these things. So anyway, I decided to create a community of like-minded people who are also interested, just like me, in living better. So if you guys want to join my community, it's called the Liberty Pursuit Network. It is brand new. Come on over. I'd love to have you guys and join like-minded people. Be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now. Now, guys, this was during a live Fox News focus group where independent voters, they were given dials to monitor their reaction during the Trump-Harris debate. And lo and behold, the dials actually showed independent voters overlapping with Republicans in support of former President Donald Trump's immigration and economic policies. Some of the things they responded positively to were statements like the Biden-Harris administration is to blame for destroying the fabric of our country with the influx of illegal immigration. Trump also blamed the administration for the rise in migrant crime, and just like you guys saw with the economic policy in the clip, when Trump spoke of the rising crime at the hands of illegal immigrants, the yellow line monitoring the independent reaction rose dramatically in Donald Trump's favor, overlapping the red Republican line. It even shocked Lee Carter, pollster and president of Maslansky Plus Partners. She said she was really surprised because the intensity of the independent support was there for Donald Trump, and she didn't expect it. Meanwhile, independents are tracking very much with Republicans. They're looking for a couple of things. They're looking for answers on immigration. They're looking for answers on the economy. They want to hear things that will get better for them, and they also want change from what's happening right now. Now, according to one of the independent voters from New York, you don't have to really look any further than 5 boroughs to see the impact of the migrant crisis. He also said that the vice president was asked directly by the moderators. Kamala Harris didn't even make an effort to defend the administration's policies at all. She can't. It's indefensible. So she pivoted. But they just totally rewrote all of Donald Trump's immigration policies in year 1. The pollster even went on with additional examples, including on fracking, abortion, and the economy, where independents tracked with Republicans' reactions. And one thing that all 3 voting blocs, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, shot up in support for Donald Trump when he said that he was going to cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like he did before. So yeah, based on this, guys, if it's independence that you're asking, then that debate was Donald Trump's all the way. And that's even with Trump bashing ABC over its handling of the debate. Now, according to our former commander-in-chief, it was 3 versus 1, and it was a rigged deal, as he assumed it would be. He talked about how a lot of people are very angry about it. He mentioned corrupt news organizations and having a lot of bad people. For Donald Trump, ABC took a big hit that night, and they ought to take away their license for the way they did that. Republicans agreed with the former president, saying that the moderators disproportionately fact-checked the former president. Basically, they let Harris get away with so many lies during the debate that people are just calling her a liar now. Instead of winning even more votes, Kamala Harris just made a lot of people sick to see her and sick to think that she could very well be running our country. In fact, I think Kamala Harris's campaign is in crisis mode right now as they quickly call for a second debate immediately after the first debate ended in October. A CNN rapid poll found 63% of debate watchers said Kamala Harris won that night, compared to 37% who said Trump won. But Trump cited multiple social media polls in the interview, including one posted by C-SPAN that showed he fared better than Harris. So this is why, unlike Kamala Harris, Donald Trump isn't raring to waste his time with another debate. Asked if he would do another debate, the former president said he was not inclined to because, according to him, he won the debate by a lot. He's not closing the door, though. He said that he should let it settle and let's see what happens. Fox News, for one, wrote to both campaigns offering to host a debate on one of the 3 dates in October in a swing state. But Trump indicated that he would not be willing to attend such a debate if it were hosted by anchors Martha McCallum and Brett Baer, who have moderated previous presidential debates. He wanted somebody like Sean Hannity, Jesse Waters, or Laura Ingraham moderating. Now, according to the former president, he didn't think that Martha and Brett were good during the debate night. So what do y'all think? Should Donald Trump even do a second debate against Kamala Harris? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments down below, guys. Let me know what you think. And if you want more content like this delivered straight to your device, do not hesitate. Subscribe to the channel now, tap that notification bell right after. It's totally free, guys. Plus, it also helps out a lot with the channel. So appreciate you guys. And we're just about halfway through this video, so don't go anywhere, guys. I got a lot more to share with you guys today. So another bit of news that Democrats are trying to make a big deal out of, Kamala Harris being endorsed by singer Taylor Swift. Now, I know that endorsement right after the debate was not a coincidence. In fact, it pretty much looked like something to distract the people from Kamala Harris's performance in the debate. Now, as for former President Donald Trump, he was totally unfazed by the endorsement from the pop star.
I've got a quick question for you. Out of nowhere, after the debate last night, Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris. What do you think?
Well, I actually like Mrs. I actually like Mrs. Mahomes much better, if you want to know the truth. She's a big Trump fan. I was not a Taylor Swift fan. It was just a question of time. She couldn't. You couldn't possibly endorse Biden. You look at Biden, you couldn't possibly endorse him. But she's a very liberal person. She seems to always endorse a Democrat, and she'll probably pay a price for it at in the marketplace. But no, I like Brittany. I think Brittany's great. Brittany got a lot of news last week. She's a big MAGA fan. That's the one I like much better than Taylor Swift.
Right. Brittany is
Mahomes.
Yeah, they're Mahomes. They're great friends.
The wife of the great quarterback, and he is a great quarterback.
My favorite team from Kansas City.
I think she's terrific.
So for Trump, he just really wasn't even surprised. In fact, he said it was just a question of time. She couldn't possibly endorse Biden. You look at Biden, you couldn't possibly endorse him. The former president said that he is not a Taylor Swift fan. He described her as a very liberal person, and she seems to always endorse a Democrat. But he also added that she'll probably pay a price for it in the marketplace. Trump even said that he actually likes Miss Mahomes much better, as she's a big Trump fan. That's Brittany Mahomes, the wife of Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. So Mahomes first indicated her support for Donald Trump on August 13th when she liked Donald Trump's Instagram post that outlined the 2024 GOP platform. The swimsuit model then appeared to respond to criticism on her Instagram stories. She said in her IG post, "To be a hater as an adult, you have to have some deep-rooted issues that you refuse to heal from childhood. There's no reason your brain is fully developed and you hate to see others doing well." Taylor Swift was with Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce and the Mahomes family at Flushing Meadows to watch the US Open. Taylor Swift and Brittany were snapped embracing each other lovingly. That's when rumors started flying around about a Trump endorsement coming from Taylor Swift. But I don't know what happened. Something or someone must have changed their mind. What do you guys think? But yeah, one thing that I was really not a fan of was the biased presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Now, I mean, guys, not a single question was raised about the execution of Hersh Goldberg, Poland, and 5 other hostages 2 weeks ago, and about the Americans killed by Hamas terrorists on October 7th. No mention of Iran either, a country which is within weeks of acquiring a nuclear weapon and responsible for funding, possibly even directing, repeated attacks by its proxies on American forces in the Gulf of Arabia, the Red Sea, Iraq, or even Jordan. What about President Joe Biden's capacity to continue in office? Well, not a word on that either. And nothing on China, their genocide against the Uyghurs, the suppression of Hong Kong, threats to Taiwan and the Philippines, or their unprecedented peacetime military buildup. So you gotta wonder if ABC, possibly under pressure from its parent company Disney, avoided any questions that might upset China and jeopardize their business interests in the country. But as we all saw, plenty of time was made for an overly long debate on abortion, a topic that's already been discussed time and time again in this campaign. There was even the odd, irrelevant question of Donald Trump about his regrets over January 6th. The moderators interrupted Trump 5 times with so-called fact checks. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris just went unchallenged. I mean, even independent voters that I know saw the bias was palpable. But yeah, guys, Democrats cheered, Republicans were first shocked, and then they were angry. Many agree this was the worst moderated, most biased presidential debate since 1960. Now, this may be around Trump lost to Harris and ABC, but it may very well be Donald Trump's win in the long run. For me, the blatant media bias and the decision to sideline critical issues made ABC and Disney the real losers. Because of that, there is a chance that polls might even edge toward Donald Trump as the great silent majority digest the tidal wave of omnipresent criticism of the debate moderators outside of the Manhattan Beltway elite media.
Well, former President Trump surprised a lot of people yesterday by proposing a 15% corporate tax rate for companies that make their products here in the U.S.
My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
So I want to get reaction from former Home Depot CEO Bob Nardelli. Bob, great to see you again. Thanks for being here. Yeah, the thing that I really like about this plan is you're not being penalized if you have to buy stuff abroad. I mean, a lot of companies obviously couldn't do that. You'd still be taxed at the 21% corporate tax rate, which is a lot lower than what Kamala Harris is proposing. She'd go up 33% to 28%. But you are free to choose if you want that bonus of paying 15% if you buy American. It's to use that phrase of Milton Friedman's, you're free to choose. You're not going to be penalized, but you would be incentivized to buy American. Do you like the plan?
Now, before we hear from the Home Depot CEO on this one, I think that this plan from Donald Trump is absolutely brilliant. I think it's remarkable. Kamala Harris, I mean, as many people call her now, Comrade Kamala Harris, Commie Kamala Harris. Basically, Donald Trump has opened the free market. He believes in capitalism. He believes that companies, corporations should be able to choose where they source their materials from, where they source their labor from. Donald Trump is now calling for a 15% corporate tax rate for companies that make products in the United States. So this would actually be technically what Kamala Harris says, one of the big tax cuts for corporations. But here's what they're not telling us. This is what they're not telling people, right? And this is why it ends up being another double standard, another two-faced lie, another half-truth that ABC News was unwilling to fact check her on. What this actually does is it incentivizes corporations to source products here in the United States. It's basically like getting a discount. Trump is calling for a 15% tax rate for companies that make products in the United States. This is one of Donald Trump's plans, or concepts of plans, as he said in the ABC debate, which would actually make companies spend more money here in the United States, drive up employment opportunities for working class families in the middle class and whatnot, and to make America great again. But don't take my word for it. Let's hear from the CEO of Home Depot.
Yeah, well, David, you've had a great show so far. No lack of issues for sure. Thanks. But I think the plan that he proposed has a lot of merit to it. It really is encouraging localization, if I could use that. You know, the other party is proposing heavier taxes, corporate taxes, and I've lived through this before, David. I've lived through 7 recessions, and when you increase those corporate taxes, you basically force an offshoring strategy. Because you have to compete on a global scale. So I think he's very creative with this plan. And again, there's a lot of questions about tariffs out there. And President Trump really used tariffs quite effectively, I think, not as a...
And I just want to really highlight some of these big Donald Trump economic plan points here. Look, make 2017 tax cuts permanent, end taxes on Social Security benefits, guys. This is massive. How many people have you heard of who receive Social Security or SSI or SSDI, or they're approaching retirement? They're maxing out their 401ks. They're maxing out their IRA investment accounts, trying to get ready to retire, trying to, achieve financial freedom and financial independence. And they're worried about getting a scary letter from the Social Security Administration, the SSA. There's thousands, there's hundreds of thousands of fixed income retirees right now getting letters from the SSA threatening to garnish and take back overpayments that the Social Security Administration has accidentally sent out. Here you have Donald Trump trying to end taxes on Social Security benefits. I can't make this stuff up. 10% tariffs on all imports, boosting fossil fuel production. Look, this is clearly going to lower gas prices. Not that Kamala Harris even cares about gas prices. She don't even drive. Reduces corporate tax rate. They make it seem like this is a bad thing. But here we have the former CEO of Home Depot explaining how Donald Trump's creative tax plan actually helps more than just the corporations. This is going to help the middle class. And let's not forget about the no tax on tips here. This is brilliant. But what's Kamala Harris's plan? She didn't even answer any of ABC News moderators' questions during the debate.
Policy, but as a practice. He did get China's attention. He got him to the table, and they've had a fair negotiation about making sure the quid pro quo of trade in, trade out, and affecting GDP. So this is yet another creative idea, as many of what he's proposing in his campaign, and certainly challenges the other party as to the legitimacy and the common sense of some of the things that they're proposing, given where we are, and particularly some of the numbers we saw today, David.
Now, Kamala Harris's campaign has attacked the president's plan, the former president's plan on tariffs, saying that they would be an inflation creation, and there's some merit to that idea. You look at Milton Friedman's works on tariffs, and they pretty much confirm a lot of that. However, he used it, as you said, in a reciprocal fashion. He wasn't willy-nilly throwing tariffs on everything. If China came out with a 75% tariff against our cars, he would do the same, and that got them to close it down a little bit. And inflation, as far as inflation is concerned, inflation stayed about the same during his entire administration.
Yeah, I think, tariffs that create trade wars, just like price wars, and I've lived through all of those, are not a good thing. But if you use it in practice, not policy, like he did, is exactly what you said. He got us to the table. Now, the tariff on EVs, quite honestly, sounds great, but the U.S. consumer, put their own tariffs on EVs coming out of China. They just don't want them. They're not buying them. So I'm not sure the real impact on increased prices and so forth are going to have a basis there. If you look at VW, for example, they were displaced in China by BYD. And you look at Volvo, they're pulling back. You look at what happened here in the U.S., Ford and Jim Farley had to write about $6 billion off. Mary Bauer let off about 1,000 employees, Stellantis 2,500. So the EVs will happen, but it has to be an evolution, i.e. hybrid, versus a revolution, pure EV. And when the other administration talks about we're going to be all EV on the road, David, there's 290 million fossil fuel cars on the road today. Somebody asked the second question like you do. What happens to when you talk about all EVs, how do you get rid of 290 million cars? The average age is now 12.6 years.
Right.
And this is what a lot of folks are not talking about. First of all, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they were pushing this green plan, this clean green agenda, and it was nothing more than a big scam. I mean, they're trying to force these electric vehicles. They're trying to force EVs on everyone. Number one, not everyone can afford these EVs. They're very expensive. Number two, a lot of people don't even want them. And this is exactly what we're seeing. And this is the benefit of a free market economy. But, Kamala, she wants to force these EVs on everyone. But regardless of what tariff Donald Trump wants to put in place, there's a natural economic tariff being implemented by Americans right now. And the simple fact of the matter is that we just don't want them. We don't want them. We like our gas-powered cars. We like our V8s and turbocharged vehicles, superchargers and whatnot. And for those who want to purchase electric vehicles, they should be able to have that choice. But to force electric vehicles on every American, that's not fair. And the American people are not going to do it. And this is why people are holding on to their cars longer. How many of you guys have a car that's older than, say, 5 years? Because as we heard, we're now seeing the average age of vehicles increasing because people don't want to trade their cars in for EVs. They're driving 12-and-a-half-year-old cars, and they're still running just fine.
In recent remarks, Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, has all but declared victory, and he deserves considerable praise for getting the balance of policy about right through some very treacherous times. The U.S. economy currently has low inflation, low unemployment, a boom in manufacturing, and dominance in technologies of the future like AI and gene editing. Even rising inequality, which has soared for decades, has recently abated. And yet, these factors are not giving the incumbent Democrats the advantage one might have expected. In most polls, Donald Trump continues to lead Kamala Harris on the question of who would better handle the economy, though by less than he led Joe Biden.
Wow, guys, this is big news. Even CNN has come out with their own polls showing Donald Trump dominating Kamala Harris in the polls here, showing how most Americans have way more faith in Donald Trump with the economy than they do with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, let alone Tim Walz. He has no history, no positive financial backing to stand on.
Broadly, the race remains virtually tied. While Harris had improved on Biden's disastrous standing, her standing in the race both nationally and in swing states lags behind where Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden stood at this point in their races against Trump. When you consider that Trump could do better than he is in current polling, which happened due to polling errors in both 2016 and 2020, the race remains a toss-up. As with many right-wing populist parties, the AFD's rise can be largely credited to the politics of immigration. The story is a familiar one. As long as mainstream political parties turn a blind eye to the seismic shifts taking place relating to immigration, they are in danger of being outflanked by the populist right.
Well, guys, time will tell. And I'll be sure to keep you guys updated every step of the way. Just make sure you're always subscribed and have that notification bell turned on. Also, I got another video for you guys on the ABC debate. It is where we talked about how even CNN admits that this was Harris's last chance. Definitely something that you want to check out right after this one. Click on the channel, hit the videos tab, check that one out next. And speaking of that, I just want to thank you guys for hanging out with me on this one and watching this video. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing. Join us in our Patreon community. There's a link in the description. It's totally free. It takes about 5 seconds to join. I'll see you on the other side.